For Vandy to succeed in 2025, protecting Pavia is a must.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen every day. And shout out to the everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Well, this past weekend, Vandy's basketball team dropped its second straight game. Is there a cause for concern? Well, they showed resiliency, but they have some obvious needs. However, Vandy football has built quite a bit of momentum, but how do they keep it going? It is imperative that they protect Diego Pavia. That's how. So in protecting Diego Pavia, that is a multifaceted, that's a multi-level deal. It's not just, I'm not just talking about the offensive line, although that's a major factor in protecting Diego Pavia, but there's a lot of things that Vandy can do to protect Diego Pavia, because down the stretch in 2024, I think with Pavia being banged up after running so much and having to do so much and carrying a lot of the load, that he just ran out of gas. I mean, it was just, you just couldn't quite finish. He wasn't quite as fast. His throws weren't quite as sharp. He was the same tough dude. He just didn't have the gas in the tank. So how does that happen? Well, first thing, you're getting Diego fully in the program in the offseason. He wasn't here in January working out with the rest of the team like everybody else was. So that's the first level right there. I'm going to go chronologically because all of these things are going to tie in together for equal importance as far as protecting Diego Pavia, because we've seen that he's the key to this whole thing. Mentally, physically, emotionally, the offense runs through him. He's probably the most knowledgeable outside of Eli Stowers as far as the system goes. He probably almost knows it as good as Jerry Kill and Tim Beck. But protecting him is going to be a massive key. So first thing, get in the weight room, get trained, build your body for the rigors of an SEC schedule. I mean, he's coming back. He knows what that's like now, and he knows what he has to do. So build your body to be able to withstand the hits that you're going to be facing against the likes of LSU, South Carolina, Texas, Alabama, Virginia Tech, Auburn, Kentucky, Tennessee. Like all those teams, let's say this, outside of Mississippi State, who I thought was okay, every team is formidable up front defensively. Every team has studs. Every team hits. This is the SEC, right? Every team is good in this conference, and every team is extremely physical in this conference. So you have to build your body up for that. And I think, some of the other guys will as well. I think this being the second year of the brand new strength and conditioning program, the brand new training program, I should say, because it's more than just strength and conditioning. I think will bring everybody else together. So that's kind of like the first layer. If he could just build himself up physically to prevent injury and to be able to withstand the hits, that'll go a long way into help preserving what he does and the way he plays. All right, the second thing, okay, you have to find other threats in the running game. You have to get the run game and not have to rely on Diego so much, okay? Now, Diego's great. Diego's electric. Diego's going to do his thing. He's going to make his plays on scrambles. They're going to feature him heavily in the run game. We've seen that, okay? But somebody else has to. And I thought when it was successful, Cedric Alexander was busting long runs. A.J. Newberry was breaking long runs, right? They were getting decent yardage on jet sweep. They were getting some things out of the run game outside of Diego Pavia, which meant Diego Pavia had better run lanes. In the bowl game, you saw that. Alexander was successful. So was Diego Pavia, right? They were able to get Junior Sherrill on some jet sweeps. That opened some things up for Diego Pavia. Guess what? He got more yardages. He took less big shots, all of that, okay? But you got to do it against a bigger, faster, stronger defense than what you faced against Georgia Tech. So that's got to be more consistent. You have to find more weapons to be able to carry the ball in the run game, because the run game is your foundation. We all know that. The run game is your foundation. So in order to do that, I still think you need something else in the portal too at that position, at running back. I think you need a guy that can hit a home run. That's a must, okay? That is something that I think you need. And if you get that, you get some quick strike, big chunks, or someone that can take it 75 to the house after a touchback on a punt. That's a game changer, man. That is something that, to me, will help ignite your offense. Because if you get that, now everybody's fired up. That offensive line sees that back come flying through the hole, one that they created with a really good combo block to the backside linebacker, seals that guy, safety comes up, back makes that guy miss to prove that, hey, I got a scholarship too. And there's nothing that galvanizes an offensive line more than that, right? You if you see offensive linemen high-fiving each other and, they're doing the whole, the dirty dancing celebration where they lift the back up by his hips and above their head, that little celebration. Like when you see linemen getting involved in the celebrations and getting involved in whatever's happening, you're in good shape. So keeping those guys happy is going to pay off big time for you. That's going to be something that they look at and say, okay, well, we know he's going to do it. We know, I'll just give you hype. We know 21's going to do it, right? Diego's going to do it. Let's block. We got to make this block because they got to make their place. Seti, he's got to make his place, right? Sed's going to gain 12 yards if you give him the right running lane. So the offensive line is going to dedicate themselves to their craft. Now, if a running back is back there squandering opportunities, getting tackled by one defender in the open field consistently, just not capitalizing on the run lanes and not capitalizing on things, it's going to get real hard to block. And sometimes when the offensive line doesn't block well, because that happens, the other team has scholarship players too. When that happens, the running back also has to pick them up by saying, okay, well, if there's no hole, I'm going to create one. All right, I'm going to be my own blocker sometimes. And sometimes backs have to understand that they have to be that. They can't dance around and try to find an open lane. Sometimes there is no open lane. They just got to burrow their head and see if they can get one. When there's nothing there, 2 yards is a great play. When there is now, unless the lineman just gets absolutely obliterated and the guy hits him before he gets the ball, that's a different story. But I think there's got to be good synergy between the offensive line and the ball carriers. And so having other guys that can hit those big plays will help Diego Pavia, because now Diego Pavia can hit some big plays too. And Diego Pavia does well setting guys up. He understands the nuances of this offense. Like, he understands how to create space for himself. Now he's going to have even more space before he has to do anything creative. And then he'll have more room to run. Next thing you know, big play, big play, big play. Confidence is up. Here we go. Right? That's what happened against Alabama. Diego would make big play after big play. Offensive line is fired up. Now Cedric Alexander's getting involved in it. AJ Newberry's getting involved in it. Eli Stowers is even getting involved in the run game a little bit. Junior Sherrill on jet sweeps. I mean, you have option plays. You have quick trap plays and everything kind of in between. It is the essence of what this Vandy team is built around. And if they can get that going, that will, there's not going to be as many hits on Pavia. He's going to be fresher down the season because you have other guys chipping in and really contributing to the efforts and to all of that. All right. And then, lastly, I think, at least as far as the offense can as far as the offense is concerned. They have to figure out a way to be able to throw the ball down the field. Okay. They've got the quick game pretty much sewn up. They've got sprint out passing pretty sewn up. Like, they're pretty good at that. He's pretty good at, especially down in the red zone, sprinting, play action, sprint out, throw the ball to the front pylon where only your guy can get it. Like, I think there's some things that he can do in that level of passing game, but teams are going to start to plan for that now. You think Virginia Tech's watching film going, okay, stop the sprint out, stop the RPO. We've got them boxed in. They can't do anything, right? Vandy has to be able to figure out ways, and they're going to bring heat too. They're going to bring people. So this offensive line has got to be able to communicate, how do we protect this? Okay. And Pavia's got to get the ball out of his hands quicker, right? He can't, I think part of some of the pressure he got, some of the sacks he took, some of the turnovers the other team was able to create by getting pressure on him. I think some of that falls on him. Some of that falls on the offensive line. Some of it's a little bit of both. Like, each group could have, the receivers sometimes would drop the ball. Like, everything that went wrong in the passing game could have fell on anyone's shoulders, right? And that depends on the play. I could watch several plays where Diego is trying to run around back there because I'm not sure that he knows where he wants to go. I get the feeling, without being in the room with him when they're watching film, I get the feeling from what it looks like is he's trying to wait for the receivers to come open instead of playing with anticipation. If he can play with a little bit of anticipation, I think that'll help him in the passing game, because every once in a while he does. When he feels really good, you can tell when he feels really good about a concept, because on his third step, that foot's in the ground, that ball's coming out, and it is on a rope, and it is well timed, and it could be well defended. He places it perfectly. Or some of these fade routes that he throws, he goes quick 1-2, ball's out on time. The ball is placed exactly where it needs to go, and he just gets in a rhythm, right? When he feels really good about it. But there's a lot of drop back stuff. There's a lot of down the field stuff that he doesn't feel comfortable with, because I don't know if it's a height thing. I don't know if it's like he's just unsure of himself as a passer, which seems odd to say given how confident Diego Pavia actually is. It begs to differ. Like, he knows his limitations. I think right now he knows he's got to work on those, and I think he has, and I think he will continue. But he's just got to get more comfortable throwing the ball down the field is kind of what it appears to me. He's got to get more comfortable on more concepts, being able to hit those timing steps and rip that ball in there, right? And I think too much sometimes he feels the pressure. Teams do a good job of game planning, and they just put guys right in his face, and he gets flushed, and he tries to run around back there, and he in the SEC, he can't outrun everybody, although I think you wish he could. But it's very small. It's very. I don't think this is like a massive concern, but I think that's just kind of the progression of a quarterback, right? He's been more of a runner for his entire career, and he hasn't been asked to have a high level passing game. He's done just enough in the passing game throughout his whole career to kind of satisfy him as a runner. And in the SEC, you just need more, right? Is that word, SEC and more, right? So I think he can protect himself by being a good passer, getting the ball out on time, trying to scramble less, things like that. And then play calling wise, I think getting away from predictable play calls in predictable scenarios, like third and long, throwing a screen pass, or, second and long, running, some of those things. Like, why not, why not go out of, be aggressive, go out of, what am I trying to say? Tendency. Do some tendency breaking stuff a lot of times. I thought the play calling was great at the beginning of the season. Then as people got banged up, it got a little more conservative. So I don't know. That's but protecting him is just kind of building up the offense around him and building up, just making sure everything is shored up, right? Making sure his body's well protected throughout the offseason program, making sure there's things built around him so that he has some more confidence that, okay, well, there were some guys, but it wasn't consistent, and it felt like he had to make every play. That's how it felt like to me watching him play. That's how I thought his mindset was. I got to make every play. If I don't, we're going to lose. And first, he's got to get out of that mindset. He's got to trust that more people are going to make the plays, and the people around him have to make the plays to gain that trust. So it's kind of a give and take thing. But these are ways that I think he'll be preserved. You'll see the Vandy that you saw in the bowl game and the Vandy you saw early in the season all throughout the course of the season. And you may even see the record improve even that much more. So that's just kind of how that goes. But Vandy's basketball team lost 2 straight. Is there cause for concern? They showed some resiliency, but wasn't enough. What's going on there? We'll find out next. All right. TurboTax. You got it, man. This is a message from your sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was dealing with piles of paperwork and frustrating forms, and then waiting and wondering and worrying if you were ever going to get any money back. That's so stressful. Now, Taxes is easily uploading your forms to a TurboTax expert who's matched to your unique tax situation. An expert who's backed by the latest technology, which cross-checks millions of data points for 100% accuracy. While they work on your taxes, you get real-time updates on their progress, and you get the most money back guaranteed, all while you go about your day. No stressing, no worry, no waiting. Now this is Taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. It's only available with TurboTax Live Full Service, real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Also, speaking of guarantees, if you visit the Joint Chiropractic, I will guarantee that you'll feel better. I'm in the process of moving my mother. Just to give you guys a little update, she's in a rehab facility right now. She is, she got wrecked with COVID and flu, so she's rehabbing, and she's going to be moving into a senior community and all that stuff. She's okay. She's going to be fine, but she's just recovering right now. But all that moving has my joints all messed. I'm sore. I feel, I could never be a professional mover. Actually, you know what? If I was, I'd probably be pretty jacked right now. Might not be a bad idea. Anyway, so I need to get back to the joint. I need some things straightened out, man. I feel completely out of whack, and I need to get some things straightened out. My neck, I can't hardly turn it. When I go back, they're going to do that neck crunching thing, and it's going to be glorious. And I'm going to float back out of there, and I'm going to feel I was feeling good for a while. And then, I had a bunch of stress, and, I was worried that I had COVID and flu and, COVID or flu or anything like that. And I, knock on wood, I didn't. But the Joint Chiropractic has 900 locations nationwide. Go visit one. The point is, they'll get you right. It's personalized, and they check with you every single time you visit to make sure there's nothing new to add. So 900 visits, 900 visits. I want to take 900 visits. They have 900 locations nationwide, so make sure you go visit the one closest to you and get right today. That's the Joint Chiropractic. All right. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. Make sure your second listen is Locked On SEC. Chris Gordy does a phenomenal job. The squad, the cream rises to the top. Oh yeah. The squad. We get together, we riff about college football, SEC, the Painted Rocks at Missouri, whatever the case is. We make fun of Stephen Willis of Locked On Ole Miss, who has a phenomenal show, by the way. You should check that out. But it's great, man. We have fun. We have more fun than any other conference, I can tell you that much. So my conference pride stretches only to the Locked On SEC squad shows. So take that for what it's worth. All right. Vandy basketball. Are we concerned? That's the biggest thing. Are we concerned? All right. Well, the things that I've been concerned with, they're just not getting much better right now. Now, this team, I'll say this. They play together. Jason Edwards was a stud, 20 points, right? Mark Mitchell for the Tigers, he led them with 19, okay? But here's the thing, man. I just don't think Vandy's a good enough shooting team because they came out ice cold. And that was tough. And I'll say this, and Mark Byington was first to admit, winning on the road in the SEC is tough. It is difficult, okay? But you can't start a game on the wrong end of a 14-2 run, okay? You just can't, okay? You can't start cold. And because you're just behind the whole time. And now you're pressing, and now you're throwing up shots and threes that you shouldn't, and you're not playing your game. Okay. But it's, again, Vanderbilt, here's what I like about Vanderbilt. And here's what I wish they can incorporate. The things that Vandy's very streaky. Okay. They're a very streaky team, which last year's team just wasn't good at all. So I guess that's an improvement, but they're very streaky. Okay. You start off ice cold, and then you just kind of, muddle around, and, right before half, they go on this big run and they cut it down to single digits, right? They went down 41-32 was the halftime score, which I think at one point it was like way worse than that. I think it got almost close to 20 points at one point in the first half. So, the Vandy, I love the resiliency that they show. I love the aggressiveness they play with. I think it's just, to me, it's just so easy to get Vandy out of their game because this group there's not really many shooters, if any. And you're getting wide open looks, but you just can't capitalize, right? Second half, they battle back, they claw back, but the way they played in the second half, I think if you start better, you win this game. I think if you start better, you win this game, hands down. And to me, you got to find ways. You got to find ways to start, right? Because this is something. And Missouri, they won by 9. They pulled away a little bit. So it was a valiant effort, but they just got it going. So to me, you got to find shooters. You got to find ways to start. You've got to find ways to, you can't be this streaky in this league. And there's a lot of things that I think play into that. But as far as the story of this game, you just on the road, you're toast if you start like that because the crowd's jacked up. You're just toast, man. You're toast. So what does that mean moving forward, right? Because the story of this team is they just couldn't shoot. They're streaky. They're resilient, but they're streaky. So what does that mean going forward? Well, I'll tell you next. All right. Attending the new 12-team college football playoff games is an incredible experience that brings fans together like never before. I remember the excitement of past playoff games and can't wait to make new memories with the updated format and extra teams involved. Speaking of which, you only have one more opportunity, so you better head to Atlanta now. But get on the Game Time app, that's for sure. Because Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Now, recently I used Game Time Picks to find tickets for an upcoming game. Browsing through these deals was a breeze, and I found great value for all kinds of seats around the venue. The Super Deal in particular stood out as the best value for the event. I love that I could see the seat views before buying, and the app shows you the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Plus, the one-time ticket delivery and lowest price guarantee gave me complete peace of mind. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, winding down the show here. Locked On Vandy on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every day. You know where to find us, man. Audio side, if you're cruising in the car, YouTube, if you're sitting there at work, or you're trying to project it on a big screen and show everybody, hey, look, this is my friend, right? Because the way I want to do this show is I want to feel like we've been friends for years. Right. And we're just having a conversation, right? You're rebutting me, you're whatever, right? So here's the thing. At Locked On Vandy, give me some feedback on all social media platforms, all that good stuff. But here's the deal, man. Vandy, I think this, you could obviously tell. Here's what's frustrating about this basketball. Here's what's frustrating and great all at the same time with this basketball team. They show they're much improved. We know that. Okay. They're more together. They have an identity. They play well to that identity at times. But I think, unfortunately, until it's set, until you get some of these guys through a full season and you're not having to replace the entire roster, that was tough. Because, you didn't really get a whole lot of size, because I don't know that any big man coming from the portal really wanted to come here. I don't know. It was weird. I think you got the best that you could get out of the portal. AJ Hoggard is going to be a stud. I love him. He already is a stud. Jason Edwards, dog, right? Tyler Tanner, when he kind of figures it out, he's going to be tough, right? But you don't really have much size. McLaughlin's 6'9". You got to have somebody with some size, some grit, some whatever, right? And you've got some decent small forwards, but you're just really kind of overall a small basketball team. So to me, that's the biggest concern is you play these SEC teams, that have size on the inside, and you're not, unless you can shoot, there's not really much you can do. And Vandy, they can't shoot. That's a problem. They're not shooters. They attack the rim. They're slashers. They're drivers. They're scorers. They can score the basketball, but only in certain ways. And when those ways are taken away, they're not consistent enough of a shooting team to be able to make teams pay for packing in the paint, right? If a team packs their entire defense inside the three-point line and they're not closing out on you, you got to bury those. And if you can't, then how are you making them pay? Because you can't get to the rim. You can't make your free throws on a consistent basis, because if you go to the rim, they're going to put you down. So you got to make threes. And I think first on the list for Mark Byington, whether he recruits out of high school or out of the portal, it doesn't matter. Find you a dead red three-point shooter. Go find you a JJ Redick, a Trajan Langdon, or somebody that's automatic shooting threes, right? I don't care. Get a three-point shooter. Get somebody that Get two guys, because you need to rotate them in. But get guys that as soon as that ball touches their hands, it's up and it's good. Teams will not play you. If you're going to hit three-pointers, they're not going to play you that way. They're just not. They're going to have to close out on that. And when they start closing out to the arc, lanes open up, space opens up. They can't cover the whole court the whole time. There's going to be space. And right now the space is beyond the three-point arc. And you can't make them pay. That's a problem. That's the biggest area of concern. You can't shoot consistent you're streaky, but you're tough as hell and you're resilient. And you just fight and claw and keep yourself in the games. And that quality is going to pay dividends at some point. That mentality is going to come through at some point. But you just have to shoot. If you can make some of those baskets, don't start on a wrong end of a 14-2 run, especially on the road. Don't do those things. Find ways to make up for your size. They're tough. They're resilient. They can. They're just, and the solution right now, they just don't have. You shoot your way out of it. You make shots. You make contested shots. You make wide open threes. You drive, get to the line, make your free throws. Teams will play you differently, I promise. So that's my spiel. But until they do that, it's going to be much of the same, unfortunately. But this team's fun to watch. I like watching them. I think they have an identity, and that's something. I think for the fans to say to give up on this team and like, oh God, here we go again. It's different. It's a different feel, and that's great. The identity of this team is there. This team plays hard as hell. Mark Byington knows what he's doing as far as I mean, to go 13-3 they're 13-4 at this point. To be 13-4 with this team is incredible. They've just now have to adjust. The SEC has adjusted to them. Now they got to find a way to readjust. They've got to find ways to get shooters. They've got to find some shooting. I don't know what it is, but they've got to find it, and they will. I think and it may not be this season. It may be a rough conference slate. Just buckle up for that. But Mark Byington, I think, is building something good. I just think he now has figured out, okay, teams aren't, I can't run up and down the floor on these teams. They're going to force me to shoot. He will adjust. And if he doesn't, then, you get somebody else in there that will. So find a shooter, find ways to get baskets consistently, and you'll be just fine. But anyway, that's all I got. Hope you guys survive Snowmageddon, and we'll see you back here next time on the Locked On Podcast Network, on the Locked On Vandy Podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network. Anchor down. Peace.